here. This is going to be recorded, so I can share the recording after with you if you have any doubts. My name is Angela Piedad Suarez Torres. I'm the course director. I belong to the Zona Centro Boyacá, SEAD Duitama. I'm professional on international relations from the Universidad del Rosario. I'm specialized on European studies from Universidad del Rosario, and I have a master's degree on international politics from Newcastle University in the United Kingdom. There is one tutor in this course, which is Javier Gerardo Vivas Prieto, who is the director in some groups. And our class plan for today, after the presentation, we're going to talk about international negotiation, global strategies, internationalization theories, international negotiation phases and tactics, cultural consideration in negotiation. I'm going to close my camera because I have some troubles with the internet. So please let me know if if you have troubles, maybe hearing me, you can write it down on the chat so I can know what's going on. First of all, we talk about the international negotiation. The international negotiation is a process where different parties from different countries aim to reach a mutual beneficial agreement. I think that we all are clear with these ideas. It is very important because it's critical for the successful of international trade and also facilitates conflict resolution and partnership building. There are some internationalization strategies, different methods that are used by companies to expand into foreign markets. The main strategies that we can see are, first of all, exporting, to selling goods or services to foreign markets, licensing, which means allowing a foreign entity to produce your product, a joint venture, collaborating with a local firm for shared risk and expertise, and foreign direct investment, which is investing directly in foreign assets or companies. From these internationalization strategies, we go to the global strategies. The global strategies are comprehensive approaches to compete in international markets. And there are some types of global strategies. The first one is the global standardization, which is offering a uniform product globally. And one example is Apple, the company, which shows the different or sells the different product in different, the same product in different markets. It means it's a standardized product. We're not going to find a different iPhone in China or in India or Russia or Europe. It's the same iPhone with the same technology, with the same basics of elaboration. This is one of the global strategies, but it depends on the characteristics of the product and also the consumer. The second type of global strategy talks about localization. In this case, tailoring products to fit local preferences. In this case, we go more to the examples of food, which is McDonald's, Starbucks, and different restaurants that we can find all over the world. Maybe Coca-Cola is also an example, but it's also a transnational strategy. In the case of McDonald's and Starbucks, those are companies that had to adapt their menu regarding the customer, the region, and the preferences of the customer. The transnational strategy is like in between both because it's balancing global efficiency and local responsiveness, which is Coca-Cola. It tends to be the same product, but it's being produced in different regions of the world, of course, because they have to decrease cost of production. And it would be very expensive if you produce Coca-Cola in just one place and then export. So the case of Coca-Cola, they produce locally Coca-Cola with the same recipe all over the world. But there is a bit of localization about Coca-Cola because the amount of sugar and it's going to be different depending on the region of the world. Coca-Cola that you drink in the United States is going to taste a little bit different in Colombia and a little bit different in Japan. In Japan, there is a special case, which is that in Japan, you can find the only healthy Coca-Cola that is sold on the world. And it's from Coca-Cola, but it has a special characteristics according to the culture to be healthy. We also have some internationalization theories, and through the activities, you study one of them, which was Uppsala model. The Uppsala model is a theory that explains how firms increase their process of internationalization. The Uppsala model was developed by the Swedish researchers Johansson and Walln in the 1970s, and it explains how the firms they gradually increase their internationalization involvement. It suggests that the companies often start with limited internationalization and progressively expand their operations as they gain experience of knowledge. The key features of this model is that they have the incremental steps, which means that the firms typically begin with exporting, involving lower risk and commitment. As they gain experience, they may move to more committed forms like joint ventures or wholly owned subsidiaries. The second element is the market knowledge. The model emphasizes the importance of acquiring market knowledge, and the companies learn about foreign markets gradually, and this knowledge reduces uncertainty and risks. One element that is very important in this Uppsala model is just a small risk. The companies, they don't want to face higher risks. The physical distance, it refers to the concept of the physical distance that perceives the difference between the home country and the target country. But this distance can be cultural, economical, legal, and even physical. The firms are more likely to enter to markets that are similar to their home markets due to a lower perceived risks. Of course, neighbor is more familiar for us than a country that is in the other side of the world. And the learning process, which is very important in this Uppsala model, talks about the internationalization is seen as a learning process. The companies, the firms, they gain knowledge through the experience, which in turn informs their future international strategies. The Uppsala model suggests that the firms will typically internationalize in a gradual and systematic way with a focus on learning from each step to build their capabilities and confidence. So this model explains how the company goes international, but in the process of knowledge of the market, on the conditions, on the culture. And in that basis, as they get more knowledge, they can face a little bit more risk and maybe go further in that process of internationalization. We must realize that this model was developed in the 1970s, where the development of the same process of globalization, the communications technology and the digital world that we know right now was different. So for us to analyze the process of internationalization of a company today by the Absalom model, of course, must be understood taking some elements of the model, maybe considering that the companies they don't want to go international very rapidly, and that they need to get more knowledge of the market and the trends in the environment before facing higher risks. But to understand the Absalom model now, considering all the digital world, we have to adapt the concept. We cannot pretend that the model of the 70s is going to explain fully a process of internationalization in a digital world, okay? There are some other theories like the eclectic paradigm that considers another elements as very important, just like the ownership, the location, and the internationalization advantages. So what do we really need if we want to go international by exporting, or if we want to go international by strategic alliances or joint ventures? What's important for us? If to have the control of the production or just to get into new markets? And the Porter's diamond talks about the factors that influence the competitive advantage in international markets. There are some factor conditions and demand conditions. And today we can talk about the innovation elements, competitive elements, those characteristics that may help us to be different and to have that competitive advantage on the market. And also, we need to be aware of that nowadays the communication, the technology, innovation, and digital facilities are going to help us to understand and to learn more about the market and the conditions and the potential that we have in that international arena. So it is very important for us to consider that those theories help us to understand the businesses today, the process of internationalization, but we also have to be sure or to understand that those theories were developed before many development in the international and global understanding of the economy and commerce. So there are some elements, of course, that are going to be useful, but we cannot pretend to explain completely process of internationalization of a company just by literally understanding each of those models. We can add some elements of the digital era where we are, the globalized world where we live, and of course, the use of communication, and nowadays, the use of artificial intelligence in the process, of course, of getting to know the markets where we want to get in. In that process of internationalization, there are some phases that we need to know and to be aware of. The first is the preparation. And in this phase, we go through the research to other parties' culture, interests, and negotiation styles. But also, in that preparation of the international negotiation, we have to get to know a lot of the culture to get a good knowledge of the market and to be aware what is the profile that we have about negotiation and what's the profile of negotiators that the other part has. Because negotiator, depending on every region of the world, is going to be different. The interests are going to be different, the priorities, and of course, the process of negotiation is going to be different. The second step or phase is the relationship building. For some cultures, it's very, very important, this relationship building, to establish trust and rapport. Like the Eastern cultures, in the case of China, to build a relationship first with the other party is very important before thinking or considering any business. To trust in that person is very important to get to know the other person. That's why sometimes they prefer just to get to know the other part by going to have dinner together and to share some knowledge about who you are, if you have family, if you have kids, how many years have you been in the company? And those are elements which are important in that culture. But in some other cultures, there is no need of this process. And those are the things that we need to know and to get to know in the first step, which is the preparation. Then we go to the third phase, which is the information exchange, that it clearly communicates the interests and listen to the other party. Then once we get this relationship building, we can, of course, talk about the business, to exchange the information that we have about the business, what are the priorities that the other party has. And now we start to talk about the negotiation, really, how it goes. In the phase 4, we go to bargaining, which is important in some cultures and in some others no. And it means to propose terms and counteroffers to negotiate. There are some cultures that if you say that the cost of that element is 100 pesos, that's it. But in some others, you have to say that it's 400 to finally get to 100, for example. So it depends on the culture of bargaining that the other part or us we used to have. And the last phase is the closure, to finalize the agreement and the document all terms, which is also important because sometimes we can go very well through the 4 first phases and then we go to the closure, we don't know the regulation about the documents, the contracts, and if we really can trust because they sign, or if we really have to trust the word. So there are some different characteristics that we're going to find in different cultures. We talk also about the international negotiation tactics. Specific strategies are, yes, Maria Valentina, you have a question? You want to share something?
Yeah, it's not regarding that we are talking about, is more regarding that. I mean, I'm right now working, so I'm trying to put attention to the class and also to the work I have to do. And literally, my question is it possible for you to share with us these templates or this presentation?
Yes, of course. I'm going to share you the recording. So in that recording, you can go through to the presentation. Is that okay for you?
Yeah, that's helped me. But also, is it possible for you just share with me that presentation? Yes, if you can. If not, it's okay. I'm going to rewatch the video.
No, it's okay. If you can send me an email through the platform and I just answer you with the presentation, that's okay, okay? Is that right?
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Dura.
Okay, thank you too. Well, we continue with those tactics. There are specific strategies that are used to influence the negotiation outcomes. The first one is anchoring, which means starting with a strong initial offer. And it is very important for us to know about the culture of bargaining. Because as was saying, some countries, some cultures are really used to bargain. Most of the Latin countries and also Chinese, they used to bargain. But some others like Americans or Europeans, they're not used to bargain. So in that case, we need to be sure what's the type of culture where we're dealing with to be sure about this. How are we going to present this initial offer? If the initial offer is going to be very high because we're going to go through a process of bargaining, or if we don't need to have a very good difference between the initial offer and the one that we want to get agree with. So those elements are going to be different depending on the culture that we're dealing with. Silence, using pauses and encourage to the other party to speak. Of course, there are some cultures with this use of silence is very important. There are some others that the silence is a bad idea or a bad sign. So those are elements that we need to use, but we also need to know how to use. How important are they going to be if I'm going to do it right or if I'm failing on that process. And next, concessions. Making small sacrifices to build goodwill. Also depends on the culture. And it is related with bargaining and anchoring. So we always need to know what are our limits of negotiation. When we're assigned to a process of negotiation, we must be sure what's the limit that we have in the process of negotiation. What's the minimum that we can give? What's the maximum? But it's not because I just want to be nice with the others that I can say yes to everything. And then when I go to the company, I say, no, I did this and this and this, and they're going to be like, no, that's not useful for us. And that's not the business. That's not going to give us any profit. So the person who is going through the process of negotiation needs to know the limits of this process of negotiation. And until which is the point where you can make small sacrifices. But small sacrifices in the process of negotiation, but not the sacrifice of the company or the profit. Framing, presenting information to influence perceptions. That's very important because the way you send the message, the way you present the idea, the way you present the business is very important, and you need to show it like very attractive, to be very powerful, and of course to have an advantage. If you don't show that with passion, with knowledge, then the idea that you're going to show is not going to be very strong. So the way you present the information is going to be very, very important and has a very, very influence on the final result. If you don't have a really good knowledge, if you cannot explain any single detail, then you're going to fail in the process of negotiation. So it's very important for us how to use those elements and to analyze how am I going to use them with the people that I have in front of me, who they are, and what's the strategy that I'm going to use to be able to get them my message in the right way and to get the best outcome of the negotiation. That is very important. And this element of cultural considerations in negotiation are very, very important. Why? Because culture is important to decide any process negotiation in the international arena. Understanding cultural differences is vital for successful negotiation. Vital, listen, vital. Culture plays a crucial role in shaping negotiation styles, strategies, and outcome in international context. Understanding cultural differences can significantly influence the success of negotiation. It's basic, it's vital, as it says at the beginning. Cultural values influence the tactics used during the negotiation. For example, a high context cultures may focus on explicit verbal agreements, but different cultures have varying definitions of ethics and acceptance behavior in negotiation. Understanding those values can help avoid misunderstandings or perceived breaches of conduct. Being cultural aware allows negotiators to adapt their strategies and approaches, leading to more successful outcomes. Demonstrating respect for other cultures can foster goodwill and open up opportunities. In the phase of preparation, we really need to go through an understanding and knowledge of the culture. If we don't know if the relationship building is important for the culture, we're failing. Why? Because if we go in this process of negotiation with the Chinese straight to the point of the business, you're going to lose time, you're going to lose opportunity. But instead, if you invite and take these people to a restaurant with a round table, sharing the food, talking about your culture, your country, your taste, your family, you're showing and you open up to the other people, to the Chinese. And they want to know you. They want to know if they can trust you. What type of person are you? If you are something reliable. Those are elements for the Chinese to be very important. But if you do the same with an American or an English or a German, that's going to show like a different interest in the process of negotiation. So there are some cultures that you just need to go straight to the point. Some others you need to spend time and money building the relationship, getting to be friends. Guan Qi is the term in Chinese for this building relationship, which is basic. In the case of this, the importance of this Guan Qi, there are some situations where if you want to make business with a Chinese company and you don't have any relationship with them, the idea for you is to find someone that knows you, that knows how you deal with business, and that of course has the trust of that partner that you need to go to. If that, I'm sorry. If that partner is going to say to the Chinese, hey, I know this person, I know this company, I've been doing business with them for more than 20 years. I rely on them. You can trust them. That's helping you in the process, and that's showing them that they can trust you. That's the only one that's the only way that you can get some time. But if you don't know anyone, the process it's going to be longer for you, because for the people from China, Japan, Korea, they don't want to go very fast in the process. They just care about the quality. And that's a concept of time that is very, very different from the Eastern cultures to the Western cultures. The Western cultures, they just want to go short time processes, so short time projects, short term results, immediate results. But when you talk about the Eastern countries, they just want to build relationships. They want to build a relationship that is going to last for long. They just think about medium and long term. So it's completely different the way they think. So if we don't know, if we don't read, if we don't learn about the culture, we're losing time and money. There are, for example, these Hofstede's cultural dimensions, the power distance, how power is distributed in a culture. It's different in every culture. In cultures with high power distance, like the Asian cultures, authority and hierarchy play a significant role in negotiations. Decisions may come from senior leaders, and respect from authority may shape the negotiation dynamics. So, if you go for the Asian cultures, you need to know that. And of course, when you're meeting someone, you need to know what's the role that they have, because you're not going to lose much time on someone that is in the basic of the company and that doesn't have any power of negotiation. You need to, in this case, you have to let them know who you are, what are your priorities, what you want to do, try to build that relationship in the way that they can start to trust you and to give you some access to higher hierarchy. Otherwise, you're not going to do anything. Elements of individualism versus collectivism. The emphasis on personal versus group interests. Individualistic cultures like the United States, the American, they prioritize personal goals and decisions, while collectivistic cultures such as China and India, they emphasize on group consensus and harmony. This can affect how proposals are evaluated and accepted. So this is very important to know what type of culture are you dealing with, if they are individualists or collectivists. This is very important for you to know who are you dealing with and how are you going to manage the process of negotiation. Uncertainty avoidance, how cultures deal with ambiguity. Masculinity versus femininity, the distribution of emotional roles. Some cultures prefer straightforward, direct communication like the Americans or Germans, while others rely on subtlety and context like Japan and China. Misinterpretations can arise if negotiators do not adjust their communication styles accordingly. So, if you go to deal, if you are in a part of negotiation team that needs to deal with the company or the government of Saudi Arabia, I don't think that you're going to send only women to talk with the Saudi Arabia people, because they're very male rule culture. So it's going to be difficult for so many men to be talking just with women. You need to know that there is difference in cultures about this sense of masculinity versus femininity. How important is the role of women in cultures? So the truth is that those are elements that you may not share, you may not agree, but you have to understand and respect and to go with it when it talks about business and negotiations with other cultures. Those are elements that are very, very important to be aware of if we want to go through a successful process of negotiation. If you don't care about the result, do whatever you want. But the knowledge of culture is really, really important in this process. As conclusion, I'm going to say that mastering those internationalization strategies and theories enhances the negotiation effectiveness. What's the meaning of that? The meaning is that if you really want to go through a successful process of negotiation, you take the time to learn about the culture, to learn about the profile of the consumer, to learn about all that you can about the counterpart that you're going to be in the process of negotiation. That determines the successful or failure of the process of negotiation. If you understand the phases of negotiation, you're getting points in the process, in the successful outcomes. If you don't care about those phases, I'm sure you're going to fail in the process. So you have to apply appropriate tactics while considering cultural context that can lead to better agreements. So it is very important for us to have a clear idea of what do we want to do in this process of negotiation, what's the type of negotiation that we want to follow, the tactics that we're going to follow, and if we're going to respect and to consider those phases of internationalization. Why? Because if we take the time seriously to get ready, to prepare, to learn about the culture, the interests, and the negotiation, we're going to be successful. There are so many examples of failure or process of improvement in this negotiation that if we don't know a lot of things about the culture, traditions, and trends of the culture, we're going to fail in the process. The relationship building is something that is not going to happen in one dinner. It's something that is going to happen in different stages. For example, there is a case of a Colombian company, very small company. They were selling little dolls made with the skin of the oranges, very nice dolls. And they were once invited to an international fair in Germany. They wanted to take those decoration dolls to the German market, so they had a place in that international fair. So they had the chance, they went, they had presence in that fair, and they were showing, and a lot of people came to them and say like, wow, that's very nice, that's very interesting, getting information. And the fair passed, and that was it. A lot of people interested, but no business. That was the first year. The second year, they had the chance again to go. They say, okay, let's go. So some people was interested, maybe another opportunity, maybe the people is going to buy this time. The same situation. A lot of people interested in the product and getting information. And there was someone who every single fair was always visiting the stand, asking information about the product, the process, everything, very interested. But that was all. It was the first, the second, the third, the fourth fair. They continue every fair going because they had the chance, and the International Chamber, the Colombian German Chamber, they helped them to go. The fourth time they were there, the same person came to the stand asking all the information, and they say, okay, you've been here for the last 4 fairs. We're really interested in your product. And we see that you're constant, that you came over and over and again every fair. So now we want to make business. So imagine that the opportunity was to be constant and to continue going to the fair. And that gave them trust, and they built an image just for being there every single fair. That was the opportunity. But if after the first fair, the company would say like, I didn't sell anything, so I'm not going back, they would have lost that opportunity of business. It took them 4 fairs, 4 years, finally to get into that market. So that's the type of elements in culture that sometimes we don't consider. That sometimes we think, okay, I did it, I went to the fair, no one was interested in my product or no one buy, so I'm not going back. So we have to know a lot of characteristics of the culture, the differences that they have about the way of thinking, analyzing, trusting, and how do they do business. Those are elements very important that we have to consider. The same like the fourth one, the phase 4 with bargaining. Not all the cultures are open to bargaining. And if you go and you want to buy a piece of paper, they will say that costs $2. And you say, no, 1. But if they're not used to bargain, they're going to say 2 or nothing, $2 or don't take it. But if you go to a culture where they're used to bargain, they will say, this is $2. And you say, no, $1. And they start, okay, 180. No, 110. No, 160. And then that is a culture. So you're not going to a culture that used to bargain to say, oh, how much is that? $10. Okay, take $10. No, because probably you're paying more than is fair for that. So you have to be very clear about the characteristics of the culture. How do they think? What do they used to do? How do they used to make business? That is very important for everyone. But if you don't consider those elements, then you're going to fail in that process. Those are very important elements to know. And to learn about the culture is very important. It's not just about the language, it's the culture. Even, for example, if you use a translator, to be sure what type of translator are you using, if you can trust or not. Those are elements that you have to consider in the process of negotiation, because the process of negotiation is very important. And it means the successful or a business or the failure of a business, to open doors or to close doors. So that's very important for you to be aware and to be sure that you're really taking care of the important elements that are going to help you in the process of negotiation to be successful, to have great outcomes. If you don't care about those elements, you're going to fail, because there are so many tiny elements and situations that would decide the development of the negotiation in an international arena. Even if we have troubles in a local negotiation process, imagine in an international process of negotiation. That's going to be very, very different. And then you need to get to know a lot of elements of culture, interests, and the same negotiation styles. So those are elements that you have to be aware, to know, and to take care of them in the process of negotiation. I would like to know if you have any doubts, any troubles, if you have a clear idea of the subject. No one? Well, finally, I'm going through some anuncios parroquiales in Spanish, which is very important. Todos están invitados mañana a la celebración del Día del Negociador Internacional. Lo digo en español porque sí es muy importante que ustedes asistan. Va a ser la transmisión en YouTube. La información les fue compartida por su correo de la plataforma, en las noticias de la plataforma del curso. Entonces, por favor, necesitamos que ustedes participen, que se vinculen al canal de YouTube en la transmisión que va a haber, que den su like, que participen, que den su saludo, porque es de nosotros, de nuestro programa para nuestro programa. Es un trabajo que se lleva realizando hace un año, como todos los años, entonces es muy bonito ver exactamente el trabajo que se ha hecho desde el programa para hacer esta celebración del Día Negociador Internacional. El país invitado en esta ocasión es Argentina. Son actividades que nos sirven mucho en nuestro proceso de formación como futuros profesionales en negocios internacionales. Todos están cordialmente invitados. Es en la mañana, y en la noche el CIPAS de Building Business or Doing Business también va a estar muy interesante para que ustedes participen. También se les va a compartir la información, y por favor, pues participen de estas actividades que realmente se hacen con todo el cariño y con la idea de que ustedes también aprovechen estos espacios de aprendizaje. Ha habido de pronto en la primera actividad algunas demoras en la calificación, hubo demoras también en la asignación de los tutores, se nos retrasaron un poco las actividades, pero ya nos estamos normalizando. Si Dios quiere, la calificación ya de esta segunda actividad va a ser mucho más rápida. Les pedimos disculpas y paciencia, pero ya se está normalizando la situación. Actividades con el simulador, tan pronto se tengan los usuarios y contraseñas, se les harán llegar por parte de su tutor. Thank you very much. If you don't have any question, any trouble, we're finished right now, and anything you can contact us through Teams. Is everything okay? And have a good day, everyone. Okay. Thank you, Maria Valentina. Have a good day, and all you too. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.